This week, we brave the Arctic permafrost to visit the ultimate data storage vault.
A remote destination, far away from wars, crises, terrorism, disasters. So what could be safer?
Nick goes down under to meet the people helping to preserve one of the great wonders of the world, though some of the techniques are quite old school.
It looks like a giant thermos flask.
It really is.
Spencer challenges the boss of LG to gaze into his crystal ball in a no-holds-barred Q&A.
The year is 2030. My hair is still suspiciously brown. What does the home of 2030 look like?
And Alistair goes behind the scenes at Disneyland Paris to find out how tech is being used to bring the characters to life in one of the attraction's most popular shows.
What happens if our most valuable data is lost? Or if years from now, the technology it's stored on becomes obsolete? The search is on to find solutions that will stand the test of time. And one answer may lie close to the North Pole. Svalbard is an archipelago high above the Arctic Circle. Isolated and far away, it's home to a vault that aims to be the ultimate backup for our data.
We're about to head inside a former coal mine. It closed down 3 decades ago, and now it's home to the Arctic World Archive.
It's certainly an unlikely location.
It's a remote destination, far away from wars, crises, terrorism, disasters, and it's regulated by an international treaty. It's a demilitarized zone, so what could be safer? Far away from everything, accepted by all the superpowers in the world.
Well, I guess we switch our lights on and head into the darkness.
Let's do that.
We're going 300 meters deep into the permafrost, where temperatures are sub-zero. And behind these doors is the vault.
It's inside this container where all these precious artifacts are being stored, safeguarding a snapshot of our culture, history, and technology for future generations.
It's all put on reels of film, kept in these silver packets.
What sort of things are stored on that film?
Now we have more than 100 deposits from 30 plus countries across the world, so it's a wide selection of cultural heritage, history, literature, art, music, you name it.
And since its launch 7 years ago, the archive has been filled with treasures. There are surveys of the Taj Mahal, old manuscripts from the Vatican Library, observations of our planet from space, plus music, movies, and paintings.
And among them, Norway's most treasured artwork, the Scream.
This is a very special container.
And in this box is a copy of all the world's open source code, the building blocks of most of the world's software and websites that we use.
It's incredibly important for humanity to secure the future of software. It's become so critical to our day-to-day lives. We're essentially building another wonder of the world every day by working together to write software. We looked at a variety of different storage mechanisms and also how you'll actually be able to read them. Ultimately, you can read it optically. You can just magnify the film and read it optically.
It's dark, dry, and very chilly down here. Conditions which its owners claim are ideal for storage that could last centuries.
Storing this information down here in the depths of mine, how does that help preserve it?
Today there is a lot of risks to information and data. There is terrorism, there is war, there is cyber hackers. Nobody can guarantee what will survive. So this is a place to make sure that information survives. Technology obsolescence, time and aging.
That all sounds rather dystopian. Even here in the Arctic, there are questions about security. And 1,000 years from now, will people understand what's here?
So the data are stored on reels of pickle film, which is an information carrier that cannot be hacked, data cannot be deleted, data cannot be changed, and it's self-contained and self-descriptive. So that means on the film itself, stored in this vault, you have all the instructions future generations will need to have to really understand what it is and how you can use it and how you can get the data back.
The archive's owners also run the data preservation company Pico. And back at its Norwegian offices, all those files are printed onto film.
Data is a sequence of bits and bytes. We convert the sequence of the bits which come from our client's data into images.
In some ways, it's quite old school technology, but that's the idea. And it's intended to be easily readable, even far into the future. This is the latest group to travel all the way to Svalbard to deposit their reels in the archive.
Just behind those doors, the deposit ceremony is taking place right now, and there are individuals and organisations from around the world who are depositing their films inside the vault.
So we will invite you.
One by one, reels are added. For many here, it's a significant moment. The latest deposits include original manuscripts of Chopin's music, archives of Jaguar car models, and recordings of threatened languages, even images of islands that could disappear as sea levels rise.
Today I deposited footage, photography footage, visual witnesses of the Marshall Islands. It's an atoll state, which means it's like the highest point of the island is 3 meters, and they're facing huge impact of climate change.
No one knows how long this archive will last, but people are making plans to preserve the data we have today, no matter how uncertain the future.
One of the 7 wonders of the world, the Great Barrier Reef is the largest living structure on the planet. It's home to 1/4 of our marine life and serves as a carbon sink, removing CO2 from the atmosphere. At its core is coral. The animal has suffered rising sea temperatures, leading to recent mass bleaching events, turning them ghostly white and sometimes dying. At the latest COP29 event in Azerbaijan, it was announced that 44% of the Earth's corals are under threat of extinction. But innovations are unfolding, and at Sydney's Taronga Zoo, efforts are underway to help. One idea being developed here is to preserve coral for many, many years to come, and it's very cool. This is the world's largest cryopreservation bank of living corals. They're freezing them for the future.
They have had a pause button pressed on their biological clock. So these cells are frozen in liquid nitrogen, and the temperature of the liquid nitrogen is minus 196 degrees Celsius. It's very, very cold. So you can see exactly what we're looking at. I won't pull it out because we don't want to warm the samples up and damage them, but they're sitting nice and safe inside that tank there. They can go up a little bit warmer and not be damaged, but anything above minus 150 we don't want.
Right, okay, well let's get the lid back on then and keep them safe.
Yes, they're frozen in time, but these are living cells that we can thaw out decades, centuries into the future to ensure that genetic diversity is not lost. And that genetic diversity can be introduced into populations.
Roughly half the samples survive, but using computer-assisted analysis, researchers are able to determine which sperm to put on ice.
This particular sample has a large number of sperm moving. We can use it to monitor sperm quality over time, and there's a bit of artificial intelligence in there, that machine learning approach for predicting, for example, which colonies we should be biobanking from.
They've got around 4,000 vials.
Equates to more than 4 trillion sperm, a lot of sperm in those vials.
Getting them here requires careful transportation.
So this is a mini tank.
It looks like a giant thermos flask.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And this one's empty, so you can actually see a canister, and this will hold the samples in place when they're being shipped.
Wow.
You can see that barcode there which identifies everything from the species of coral, the number of sperm in that vial, the sea country of the corals, so where those samples came from. And so that vial, there'll be about 5 vials sitting on this cane.
Yeah.
And that cane, after the samples are frozen, will be put inside that canister.
Yeah.
And then that canister goes
inside there.
back inside the tank.
Set for travel.
Let's put it back.
How much of an impact will this work have on restoring the reef?
We're seeing corals not being able to withstand these higher temperatures. And so we're losing genetic diversity each summer. You can screen certain colonies for those heat tolerance traits, and then we can prioritise our biobanking activities for those particular reefs.
Spawning, which is the mass event when coral release their eggs to be fertilised, only happens once per year. But the team are designing a workaround.
We can only cryopreserve sperm and use that sperm during spawning. If we can cryopreserve larvae, because they represent the male and the female genome, we could potentially put them out on the reef at any time of the year.
Coral IVF is only part of the preservation puzzle. Over at Queensland University of Technology, robots are being developed to help raise coral babies.
We want to image the corals in order to automatically assess and measure their health so that we know that the corals are growing well, how many there are, and when they'll be ready to go back onto the Great Barrier Reef. Traditionally, all of the counting is done manually, which involves a trained expert hunched over a microscope, counting very tiny microscopic corals one by one over a small area that is only about 30 by 30 centimeters. While it takes an expert about an hour to count one tile, it takes us a couple of seconds.
Couple of seconds? The system is 88% accurate, which Dorian says is as fast as a human. Even so, they've got their work cut out for them.
We need to grow over 10 million corals per year. And so to do that, we need to have tens of thousands of these coral tiles being measured and counted every single week for up to 12 weeks. You end up costing, just in pure counting time, over $6 million per year.
As well as cash, it could save lab time by generating heat maps.
You can just look for the brighter spots and know that the corals are doing well.
Do you really think that this project will help save the reef?
There's certain high-density megacities across the Great Barrier Reef that if you target those, you can have maximal effectiveness. We are targeting the damaged reefs and trying to tip them over to surviving for many more decades to come.